we're going to talk about Jeff Skinner quite a bit, but going back and listening to the clip from, what was it, Monday's episode, post free agency, talking about Jeff Skinner, where he might land. You were not so sure that he was going to end up in Edmonton. I didn't know, but I was so into Edmonton. You seemed a little bit hesitant, just for the sake of, because you know where Jeff Skinner goes, I go. That's where I pledge my loyalty. I don't know if it's because you didn't want to. I don't think it's because you didn't want to share Oilers fandom, because I think that you do want to share Oilers fandom. But I think for the sake of the podcast, I believe that you wanted to kind of spread the love around and not have it all be so concentrated on the Oilers. He goes to the Oilers. I'm an Oil man. It is official. I'm officially an Oil man. Where Jeff Skinner rides, I ride. Edmonton Oilers. I'm there this season.
Well, a peek behind the curtain, there were points this season where you would ask, are we doing too much Oilers talk? And Sean and I aired on the side of, and listeners don't want to hear this, and you're going to disagree and you're going to be wrong, and this is going to sound like we're a bunch of pricks, but the shows need to talk about what interests them the most and what gets the most passion and energy out of them. I aired on the side of, we're not doing too much Oilers talk. I understand we're doing a ton of it. And Sean aired on the side of, we have to talk about the most exciting thing. And I'm sorry, but every day the Oilers are the most exciting thing. And it wasn't like a tough sell on you. You weren't like, I don't want to talk about the Oilers. You were like, hey, let's just make sure that like we're not alienating anybody or anything. So for your sake, I was like, I don't think Pete knows what it really means to be an Oil man. Because even if we weren't talking too much Oilers, I would have fucking lied because I'm an Oil man. And I would have been like, no, let's talk even more Oilers. So I definitely am not afraid to share being an Oil man. I'm famous in North America for saying it's always nice to see another Oil man. I'm going to be showing up to work every day next season, seeing another Oil man. We're going to be walking in, like checking our hats at the door, hanging them up. You're going to be wearing bean boots for some reason. It's going to be terrific. So
I'll tell you what, I am 100% getting a Jeff Skinner Oilers jersey. It's going to be
white.
I don't know, because I have the blank one, and I feel like it would be very funny if I turned the blank one into a Jeff Skinner jersey.
Would not be accurate though, and I don't know if you. No, you're an accurate boy. Yeah, you're an accurate boy.
That's true.
People are going to see that and say fake.
Fuck, you're right.
Fake. How much?
Maybe I get a white. And I think to get a white Skinner jersey would be very funny for the sake of the podcast synergy.
It would be big time if you know, for us to go hit the town, head into the Peachtree Dance wearing a couple of white various Skinner jerseys. Let's start with our Edmonton Oilers, because when we did this episode on Monday, we were kind of satisfied with the moves that they had done. They didn't have a GM. Jeff Jackson was in charge, and they had signed, they'd brought back Connor Brown, and they'd signed Victor Arvidsson. And then after that, they did everything. After this episode they did everything. They first added Jeff Skinner on a 1-year, $3 million deal. Then they added, I couldn't sleep because I was in so much pain. And I got a text from you. It was a Ryan Rishaug tweet saying they had brought back Adam Henrique at 2 years, $3 million per. You got the great graphic there from Sean. Also being brought back Matthias Janmark, who I thought was a real possibility to be gone. Calvin Pickard, they signed before free agency started. Josh Brown, they signed to really the only one of these deals that makes me say, huh? Troy Stetcher back. Pete, this is such a good offseason already for this team. And yeah, they're over the cap, and we'll talk about that. I just want to start here. Did you think after they'd signed Jeff Skinner, or even before they signed Jeff Skinner, that Henrique was even in play or still a possibility anymore?
I mean, we just hadn't heard anything about him. He hadn't even really crossed my mind because it was so quiet. But when they said that he was re-signing, It didn't shock me. It was more of a shock of like, how are they going to fit all these guys? Which the answer is they're not going to. They're going to have to move somebody. And I tweeted like, Evander Kane, you are an Anaheim Duck, and that would make a lot of sense because the Ducks still need to hit the floor. If you can convince Evander Kane to go back to California, we'll see. But you're right. Like, this is a very, very good offseason from the Oilers, specifically because they didn't overpay for anybody. Maybe Josh Brown.
Brown, that's it.
But like, normally you see the Oilers do some work and they have to force things. Be like, oh, we got to put some guys around Connor. We got to put some guys around Draisaitl. Fuck, we might have to overpay for wingers. They are getting guys to go to them now on the cheap because they have arrived and they are like being taken seriously. And we saw that with Jeff Skinner, saw that with Adam Henrique. The report on Skinner was like he was close to the finish line with the Maple Leafs. He had more money offered from another team. I forget which one at this time, but he ended up choosing the Oilers because he wanted to go there and thought that they were closest to winning, which shout out Jeff Skinner, my guy who has not played one playoff game. Anybody doubting that guy's like will to win, fuck off. He took less money to go win.
I thought you were going to say, shout out Jeff Skinner, my guy. What does he know about winning? But he guesses.
No, like I hate when people hold the playoff thing against Jeff Skinner. It's not because he doesn't want to make the playoffs. It's just he's not been on the best teams to do so. So I'm excited. It seems like in all likelihood he's going to play his first playoff game this upcoming season. He went to Edmonton to do so. I'm very excited about that. Henrique, I love that he's coming back, assuming, presumably on the cheap and cheaper than he would have got elsewhere. So yeah, I love that guys are coming back just to win.
Henrique, I heard two teams offered more money on, and I don't have it rock solid, so I'm afraid to throw it out there, and maybe it was a fever dream or something like that, but there's no way 2 years at $3 million per was the biggest offer that Adam Henrique got. I am so pleasantly surprised that he's back with them. He's the guy that I would have loved for them to have retained, but assumed he'd be outpriced, and late in his career, just had a kid. Maybe he's like, you know what, let's get whatever last good contract we can get. He said, you know what, let's get another cup run. I've had some of these, right? He had one in New Jersey, had one in Edmonton. He's saying, let's get this darn trophy. And now, boy, oh boy, it's the same conversation we had when they acquired him at the trade deadline, which is the lineup versatility offensively that Chris Knobloch has now, except in addition to the names we talked about at the time, especially at left wing, which Draisaitl can play, which Nuge can play, which Henrique can play in addition to center, you have Jeff Skinner. Unbelievable. And yes, Jeff Skinner at this point in his career, I love Jeff Skinner just like Pete loves Jeff Skinner.
No,
Jeff Skinner can score. Yeah, probably not. Jeff Skinner, I knew he was a figure skater before you did. Jeff Skinner can score, and that's kind of all you can count on from him right now. And for the Oilers, and probably for Leon Draisaitl, that might be all you need. I'm already tempted to screw around with that lineup a bit and take Dylan Holloway and keep him with Draisaitl and play Arvidsson on the right side. And then Henrique can either be a first line winger and you move Nugent Hopkins down and you got some sort of Nugent Hopkins, Henrique defensive two-way fucking monster line on your third line. The possibilities are crazy right now.
I'm just looking at Daily Faceoff right now with the projected lineup or whatever it is. It is absurd. First line, you have Jeff Skinner and Zach Hyman on Connor McDavid's wings. Second line, Leon Draisaitl with Dylan Holloway and Victor Arvidsson on his wings. Third line, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins with McLeod and Evander Kane on his wings. Fourth line center, Adam Henrique with Matthias Janmark and Connor Brown on his wings. Like, that's probably not what it's going to look like on opening night, but the fact that's even a projected lineup right now is fucking insane. Your top four centers are McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, and Henrique. That is so good. That's unbelievable. I mean,
Yeah,
they absolutely have the best top six in the entire NHL.
definitely. I think that's closer to that was closer to what I was talking about than I thought it would be. Skinner on the first line, Nugent Hopkins on the third line. Although I'll be honest, as I put these lines together, I'm not counting on Evander Kane being there, but we'll see. I like the idea of third line being Nuge, Henrique, and whomever else.
My question is do you think that it's too centered or too heavy on the forward group, and are you still concerned about what they have on the back end?
Yeah, I think that what would sink the Oilers still would be defense. Matthias Ekholm is a year older. Evan Bouchard is going to get a year better. However, I don't know how much better offensively Evan Bouchard can get, but typically where we've seen growth from Evan Bouchard has been in his offensive game. His defensive game so far in the NHL kind of is what it is. He's not a good defensive player. I love him. Oilers fans, fellow Oilmen, we're allowed to say he's not a good defensive player. I love him with all my heart. I got in some trouble with Torrey Krug for talking about him this way, but Torrey Krug got a little better over time, and he kind of got towards not a Brian Rafalski kind of place, but where with, in Krug's case, size being his limitation, he still had a good stick and was able to position himself well, and he became a pretty solid all-around defenseman. Bouchard needs to get there. I'm not counting on him to get there. So if we're talking about what could sink them, it's that Darnell Nurse didn't have the greatest year last year. Is he going to get back to what he's been? And if he gets back to what he's been, which is a representative top four defenseman, awesome. Because that's an improvement from what he was last year, and I'll take that. Philip Broberg, what's he going to be in a full NHL season? I should note, this team is still over the cap by about $2.5 million and has not signed Dylan Holloway or Philip Broberg, so guys do have to go. We'll talk about that in a second. But yes, their defense is what would hold them back. I like the goaltending. Tidy bit of work to have a good pairing, good tandem, I should say. Not really tandem because we know Stu's the guy, signed for under $5 million. But yes, if anything gets them, it's this back end. They did lose Vinny Desharnais. Bon voyage, friend. He has gone to Vancouver. A lot of like Oiler type guys going to Vancouver because they also got Jake DeBrusk. But that's what it would be. It would be the defense. I do think this is going all in though. This is them saying last year Leon's contract. Let's push the chips completely all in and show Leon and show Connor, and damn it, show ourselves, because we just came an inch. We came a freaking left-handed Zach Hyman or slightly sharper Stu Skinner away from winning the
I will
cup.
say the one thing that does sort of encourage me with the defense, although I don't love it on paper, is you got another full year under Paul Coffey, and you saw what that team, changed up under Paul Coffey leading the defense. I think that they made some strides and just a full team defensive effort under Chris Knobloch. So the commitment to team defense gives me a little bit more hope. But yeah, you're right. I like the blue line is what will sink them if they do get sunk, and it's probably going to be that Matthias Ekholm is being relied on so much and is a year older. So we'll see, but I'm very, very excited about what they look like. And as soon as they signed Jeff Skinner, man, I was like, as soon as they signed Jeff Skinner, my attention pivoted to, okay, I'm ready for the summer to I'm ready for the season to start again. Please let me watch Jeff Skinner play with the Edmonton Oilers.
We have a super chat from our friend Emily, who says, missed last week's chat spike, want to keep it going. Thanks for the effort all season from you three. Made something really special. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Also, haven't been checking the chat a ton. Somebody notes that it was reported that Henrique had a bigger offer from the Jets, which makes sense. If I were a lot of teams, I would have gone after Adam Henrique, especially the Lightning. After losing Stamkos, by the way, how about that Henrique contract? How about that? I'm not Henrique contract. Hedman. That Hedman contract. word
same
for
money.
word, bar for bar.
Yeah.
Which obviously you got to sign that player, but that's got to hurt a little more. The Oilers have added players. We've noted that. They've hired some new guys. And when it comes to Indeed, our new sponsor, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. Just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. My question now becomes, with the Oilers over the cap, and if my CBA is as sharp as it was back in my reporting days, you're allowed to be over the cap by 10% in the offseason. So the Oilers still have a ways to go before they get a call from the cops about what they're doing. But they are over the cap by $2.5 million, 2.45, I believe. They've got to send money out because they've got to sign Philip Broberg, who was just, I thought, a godsend in the postseason, and also Dylan Holloway, who really, after years of will he, won't he, I think has answered he will. Mm-hmm. So they need money. They got to send money out. Options, I would say, are Kane, who's got, what, $5 million on the books?
5.125. So yeah, basically just a smidge over 5. If you're picking a guy, it's definitely him.
He's the most logical.
But I don't know if they're going to be able to. He has got a full no movement clause. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't want to leave Edmonton, but you never know how that stuff goes. I think that he's going to be the first person they look to. Whether or not they can do it, we'll see. Cody Ceci's another one that I would try. If you could dump him on a bad team, I would do it. He's 3.25, but again, you might have to attach something to either. You're probably going to have to attach something to either one of those guys.
And then the wild pie in the sky one. And you could also like move Ryan McLeod or something. And that's like some shaving off the margins you could do. But the big one, the solve all the problems one, would be to remove the Darnell Nurse contract. That seems very unlikely, and anybody taking it, you would have to retain money. My question is, at this point and where the Oilers are,
you can't.
Do you really want to take away that important a player? And my answer is I'm sorry, I'm trying other stuff.
Yeah, you just can't. I just think that you can't do it unless you're getting back a top 4 defenseman, which who's giving up a top 4 defenseman to get an overpaid top 4 defenseman, So you're right that it would be the fix, but in terms of financially, but it wouldn't fix anything from a team perspective. And it's not an option. I just don't think it's an option.
I don't think that cake bakes, man. Yeah. I don't think that cake bakes. You're right. Because of what you would need back, and how if you've got like a cheap top 4 defenseman, you're not doing that anyway. But
especially
who knows?
With no leverage, you got no leverage. It's not a fix.
Maybe with Stetcher healthy or Brown, they like some of the things they'll be able to do if they do move like a Ceci out or something like that. I am bummed to see Desharnais go, but such is life. Krusty Ham super chats and says, "Funny stuff, boys. Good season. Currently watching on my new porch in my shady rays, playing Prize Picks and using my lawnmower 5.0 so I don't CMP. Thank you very much." As somebody in the chat notes, there's also the possibility they could start the season with somebody, let's say their last name rhymes with Jane, on LTIR. That would only get them so far, though, because you'd still be over the cap if you're signing Broberg and Holloway, unless you're going to do what Boston had to do years ago, where they just like absolutely stuck Riley Smith and Torrey Krug with like minimum contracts, and then had to do a wink deal that once we have an inch of cap space, we'll give you big money. That's what got Riley Smith traded in the first place. Callback humor. But they've got work to do. And the man doing it is Jeff Jackson, who Super Hot Fire Voice claims he's not a GM, but he's still working these deals like absolute crazy. If you remember when we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, maybe, what are the final days of Ken Holland? How do you succeed? Blah, blah. My thing was like, can't Jeff Jackson just do it? I'd rather him just do it. He's obviously got a very close line to Connor McDavid. And you were saying Connor McDavid, player GM, just have Jeff Jackson do it. Jeff Jackson is not beating the would be a good GM allegations, because all he's done is position the Oilers to be cup favorites right now with the moves that he's done.
You know what kind of reminds me of is, it's not to this degree, but Jeff Gordon in 05-06, when he took over as interim GM for the Bruins, had never been a GM before, was a player agent. I believe Jeff Gordon was a player agent, correct?
Gordon
he
was
media
a
guy.
media relations. Yeah. I'm not saying this disparagingly, because I have a lot of friends who have done this. Hand out the stat sheets to the people in the press box.
It's incredible glow up.
Hey, is there any player you want to talk to after the game type of guy? Worked his way up, was just awesome at what he did, and became assistant general manager and then interim general manager for
and
the
made like two of the biggest signings and draft picks. What?
Is the statute of limitations up? He didn't make those signings.
You don't think so? Or I guess
I know so.
Better than I did. Okay.
But, he did not make those signings.
Well, the signings were made under him.
Yes, he made he had the biggest. He had like the most important offseason ever for the Bruins.
Yes, right. So, okay, that's a good way to put it. He had the most important offseason. Yeah, I mean, the Jeff Jackson thing, you like what you see so far, but how much of it does go back to the position that he's in based off of the way the team played this past year? Because, again, like, Jeff Skinner's taking less money, Adam Henrique's taking less money to come here, but clearly he's a good salesman. Like, even if he just shows up with a picture of Connor McDavid and slaps it on the table, it's a pretty good sales pitch, and it's working. So, solid bit of work, but the rumors, the vibes are good right now around the Oilers. I hope they don't fucking sign Stan Bowman. I really don't.
I was...
I know it would just be.
I'll just say that's a rumor that existed outside of Oilers circles before it existed inside Oilers circles. So if that makes you feel any better, I would rather them not do that as well.
Yeah,
I would. I'm gonna get crazy here. I would strongly rather them not do that. I would really rather Jeff Jackson just stay there. Or how about this one? While we're divvying up credit pie for Boston Bruins transactions, Keith Gretzky.
Yeah, like just homegrown guys.
Just have him do it.
I want the Oilers, and I know that Ken Holland isn't like Oilers, but like the Oilers just staying in the family is what I want. Make Bob Stauffer fucking GM.
I've got a massive you sure about that to dole out to the chat. Neil says, Jeff Gorton rebuilt the Bruins in 2 weeks and Chiarelli got all the credit. Very informed voice. You sure about that? Chara doesn't come to the Bruins without Chiarelli. That I promise you. Chara turned down more money from the Kings and the Rangers. He was Chiarelli's guy, or Chiarelli was his guy, I should say. Chiarelli had him on this whole, like, yo, let's go to Boston and fuck shit up, brother. And the Senators were like, let's sign Wade Redden. And Chara said, I'm going to start dealing with people who seem like they make sense. Peter, what was that you were saying? Something about Boston? Let's go, buddy. Uppies. And then they went. That's right. He did uppies to Peter Chiarelli. Not the other way around.
Also, Yanni says Quenneville to Columbus. If there's one person I can guarantee that the Columbus Blue Jackets are not hiring, it's Joel Quenneville. And I know that they're the only team with a coaching vacancy. They're not hiring Joel Quenneville. They went with the controversial coaching hire last offseason. It did not work out for them. They are not going back to that well. Not that I think that Joel Quenneville is likely to repeat the toxic behavior or the problems that have been attached to him as much as Mike Babcock, but he's not going to Columbus.
Some other candidates, we have Tony Brar, GM.
Yes.
Gene M. I like that. Have Gene be the GM.
Gene M. Got it. Yeah, that took a while.
Somebody said Stauffer puppet GM is the solution. Listen,
I don't know if Stauffer's respected enough in those circles that he would not be a puppet GM.
That's the thing. I think that if they made Bob GM, they'd be like, Bob, do your thing, brother. Bob, I'll tell you what, if Bob, starting right now, if Bob became GM of the Oilers win the cup next year no matter what.
Just for,
like Leon would win it for Bob.
Yeah,
Leon would win it for Bob.
Yeah.
The pregame speech before Game 7 is Bob would be like, guys, follow me. He'd take him out to the ice and he would just skate. Fans would already be in the building. They'd be like, what's going on? Why is the GM skating? I don't like this. And then the Oilers would go out, have an incredible 3 periods and win the cup.
We all silly like the mayor.